Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast. I am your host, Kenneth Watson. Welcome to another wonderful show where we're going to dive into another sober person out here in the community. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with her. We just barely met each other, probably about, give or take, about a week to a week and a half ago on Instagram. I noticed that she had a podcast, so I immediately reached out and was like, hey, I have a show, you have a show, let's go ahead and just interview. And she got back with me real quick. So that's one thing that I will definitely praise when it comes to the sober community is that, you know, how quick people do respond. You know, like I said, we do have busy lives, but there are some people that take the time out of their busy lives to respond pretty quickly. So just some house cleaning. 12facessober.com. I have on the hoodie. You can go there. Not this hoodie because these ones are now sold out, but you can get all the camo merch. It's on there. All you have to do is click on the merchandise. You can get that. If you want to get a signed copy of 12 Faces of Sober, all you got to do is click on signed copy. I've also updated or added some more pictures lately for people who have purchased merchandise. I'll put it on there, as well as I'm out here in Panama City now, so I'm taking a lot of pictures on the beach and videos, so they will be added on the website. So like I said, I would love the support. Please support a disabled veteran. It is definitely going to a good cause. Also, I have an update as far as my children's book about playing baseball in San Diego back in the 80s. The written portion of it is complete. The only thing that I don't have is an illustrator. So if you have an illustrator in mind, somebody knows, please tag them. Like I said, I want it to be as authentic as possible, just the memories of growing up in San Diego. But moving on, like I said, the one thing I will say about the sober community is that, you know, one person shares something, someone responds, hits a like, then it's kind of like an open dialogue. And like I said, this guest is no different. And that's the reason why I wanted to have her on my show. I want to hear her story. I want to hear if there's any battles and struggles that she had with alcohol and how her life is today now that she's in recovery. And what is she doing as well to motivate others to maintain that life of sobriety. So as I go ahead and introduce my guest, her name is Christa. Like I said, she has a podcast called Christa Living Sober Podcast. And so, Christa, welcome to 12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. So, before we get into the interview, I would like to know a little bit more about yourself. You know, where are you from? How long have you been sober? And then we'll dive in from there.
Okay. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, Braintree, Massachusetts. It's like 20 minutes right outside of Boston. And then about 3 years ago, I moved to Rhode Island, the state, like right under Massachusetts.
Okay. And how long? So now, how long were you actually into drinking?
I want to say my drinking started at 12 years old.
12 years old.
12 years old to the age of 28.
20. Now,
28, yep.
Was alcohol present in the household?
Not really. I always say that my addiction stemmed from birth. My mom had me 3 months premature, and she was addicted to crack cocaine. So from there, I almost didn't make it because of the drugs, and I was placed in right away into emergency foster care, and then placed in a home where when I was ready to go, where I had to like get resuscitated if the machines went off. My whole left side didn't work when I was a little baby, so my foster mom had to like do rehab for me to help me walk again. But I say my addiction starts there. They always told me that like if I ever picked up anything or drank or did any drugs, then I would like be addicted, but I never really listened to that.
Mm. And I first want to, say I am thankful that you are here today. So that's good
Yeah.
that you definitely made it through. Now,
Mhm.
one thing that we do have similarities is that I started to have my experiences with alcohol around the same age of 12. So that's interesting.
Mhm.
It seems, I ain't gonna say everybody, but it's just interesting when you're
Yeah.
at that age, you kind of get curious and you start to experiment. So I could just imagine. So you were did you spent your from did you spend you said you spent time in a foster home, or am I correct about that?
Yeah. So straight away from the hospital when I was an infant, right into a foster home. Luckily, I didn't get moved around from foster home to foster home. Like you hear a lot of stories of kids getting moved. I stayed in the same place, and then at age 5, they adopted me.
Okay.
So then I grew up. My childhood was in a foster home, pretty
Okay.
much.
And then you said about you were 12 years old. Is that when you first got drunk, or that's when you just full blown just got into
Um,
messing around with?
That's when I first got drunk. Yeah, we were just messing around. Like there was alcohol in my house, but my adopted dad was never really like an alcoholic. He drank his red wine and his Budweisers. And then my mom never drank at all, my adopted mom. So, um around my teenage years, I met a girl who was a little more reckless than I was, and we could get away with almost anything at her house. Her parents were both alcoholics. So, she would steal her dad's beer and her mom's like wine from the box, and then I stole some of my dad's beers and whatever he had, and then we met up in the woods with some of our friends, and then that was the first time we ever got drunk,
Mm,
just
okay.
like messing around. Yeah.
Now, at what point, you said in between the ages of 12 and 20. So at what point was it like
Mhm.
that it was an actual problem for you?
Well, instantly right away, I noticed how the feeling of alcohol made me feel. Like that after that first buzz, I was like, wow, like this is something I need in my life, because at the same time around the age of 12 was when I was experiencing all these different kind of emotions, and I think it was a little more than it was added on to like our teenage years. When you're a teenager, a lot of stuff happens and you have to grow into yourself.
Right.
But on top of that, I was dealing was trying to figure out what my issues from my trauma was, which was like dealing with abandonment, dealing with feeling unloved, feeling unwanted, being in my situation because a lot of other kids weren't, growing up in like a white neighborhood when there wasn't really many biracial children,
Mm,
and then being away from my birth family. So there was just a lot, but that instant feeling of like euphoria from the alcohol,
mm,
like it made me feel good. It made me realize there was something I could take or do all the time
mhm.
to escape my feelings. So I think it got maybe around age 13 was when we started drinking
Wow.
more parties, more drinking, just a lot. I
Wow.
remember,
That's
to
interesting right
escape,
there.
and we knew what we were doing. Like she had issues in her family, I had issues in my family, and we hung out with that crowd too, whose parents didn't care that they were smoking marijuana and drinking all the time, and they just let them do whatever. So that was like the scene that I put myself in around,
Mm,
so I could escape. And then I would go home and think my parents didn't notice. Maybe they didn't, like right then,
mm,
because
mm.
they were just dealing with all the other kids and whatever.
Wow. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that definitely sounds pretty similar to mine because like I said, I started the first time, like I said, I got drunk at 12, but I
Yeah.
also I was in high school and I drank all throughout high school. I was an athlete, so every weekend it was like, all right, somebody was, had a
Hmm.
house party. Don't really know how to this day we still was able to
Yeah.
have a full house party with kegs and all that. But
Yep.
that was definitely the lifestyle I was living back in the 90s. So
Yeah. Same.
mhm.
Everybody partied for any reason.
So did you face any trouble during this time of drinking? Because like I said, there like some of these parties can lead to fights
Mm-hmm.
breaking out. You might be involved, not involved,
Yeah.
or anything else. Did you face any of those or any type of issues, during that time of when you were drinking?
I think it was probably ninth grade
Mhm.
is when um the drinking was worse. Um I think at that point I experienced alcohol poisoning 3 different times.
Mm.
Waking up in hospitals with my adoptive parents by my side, like, okay, like what's happening? I think at that point they knew I had an issue. I didn't think I had an issue. I thought I was just drinking and partying like everybody else, but little did I know that my drinking got way more out of hand than maybe other people's, but I still didn't think I had a problem. And then around the age of 15, maybe 16 is when I started getting like PC'd or like held overnight in jail from at the police stations and stuff like that, because when I drink, I would have such a bad issue with authority,
Mm.
and I would get myself in those situations where I'm arguing with cops and catching stupid charges. So my court um in and out of court started when I was around like 16.
Wow. So how was
Yeah,
like how was
it got a little messy.
yeah, how was that? I mean, like for
Hmm.
you're in high school and you're having run-ins. How
Yeah.
was what I mean? Like how was that like how was that amongst not only yourself but like your peers? Were like, how did they were they acceptive to you, or they thought it was a cool
Hmm.
thing? Like, oh yeah, you got in trouble, last time, last weekend or something like that. Like, how was that?
Well, it was like 11th grade, I think. Now
Mm.
that I'm thinking back, I don't think I cared, honestly. I still hung out with the misfits, the people who just didn't care about that type of thing. I think they accepted me. And I remember I wasn't paying attention in school very much. We were smoking in the bathroom, leaving school to smoke marijuana behind the school, skipping classes, all of that, getting detention. Um, just not being a model student at all. But somehow I still like did my studies, did track, like I don't know, because then we would just go party after school.
Right.
Um, But yeah, by 11th, 12th grade, it was getting so much worse
Mm.
until the point where in my senior year is when I first went away for help, because an incident happened where we were all drinking in the woods at this huge bonfire, and it got raided by all the town cops
Mm.
and everybody scattered. I was just sitting up on top of the cliff like drunk out of my mind, and the cops are all at the bottom, and I'm like being an asshole. I slur my words, probably yelling at them. I'm throwing beer cans down at them. They come up to me and they're like dragging me out, and then I try running away, but they catch me, put me in handcuffs. But at this moment, I'm like arguing with the lady cop. I spit at her. I throw a beer can at her, and they charge me with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon on a cop. It was a beer can, but I spit too. Yeah. Um, I was an asshole. I was so like out of my mind every time I drink.
Mm.
Um, but even then, I didn't think I had a problem, of course.
Yeah.
So after that incident, I remember just having issues with people in school, like arguing and fighting. I remember I was just out of control and I needed help. And I was a threat to myself and others.
Mm.
So I went to the guidance counselor and I was like crying to her. I was like, I need help. I want to hurt myself. I'm arguing with people. This and this is happening in my life with like the courts and the cops and stuff. And it was serious.
Mm.
And so she was recommending me going to the hospital, where they intook me and then recommended I go to a dual diagnosis program in Western Massachusetts. So I went there, and it was a really dark period of my time. Um, I wrote every day though. I look back in my journals and I'm like, wow, like I was a whole totally different person.
Mm.
But just dealing with depression, anxiety, just all that dark stuff. And then on top of that, the alcoholism. Um, and then they put me on medication. I finished my schoolwork for high school in that program. And I never walked with my class, but I did end up finishing school and getting my diploma. Uh, and
That's
then
really
I was
good.
there
That's really
for,
good.
yeah, I was there for a few months. It helped, so they let me leave. I went to AdCare, a program, and then I went to McLean's Hospital in Massachusetts for a little bit. And then that's when they sent me to like a teenager sober living house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's brought
So
you to where you are today, or
no,
you?
it did
Oh,
not.
okay.
It did not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But that was when I was 17, right?
Mm.
17, 18, I guess. I didn't stay long in that house. An incident happened. I don't know. I remember just arguing and fighting with people, and something happened. I made my parents pick me up.
Mm.
I didn't stay long. I got out and I didn't stay sober. I still hung out with the same people, did the same stuff, but at that point, I think maybe 2 years after high school, I tried to do the community college thing. I did that for a few years, held down jobs at different restaurants, but and then my adopted dad ended up getting Alzheimer's disease.
Mm.
And at that point, it was hard to live in that house with my mom being frustrated with him and just seeing him that way. So I needed to escape. So around 21, that's when the bar scene hit and the clubbing hit. And like, I was just always escaping, always getting drunk, always doing anything to get high,
Mm.
to just not be in a reality, because I just didn't care about reality, you know? And I was always, in different relationships, never holding one down, but there was always just somebody else there because that was another addiction.
Mhm.
Um, so my life was a mess. My 20s were just always just running away from my problems, but always being high or drunk on something.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and then there's so much, but I did jot down some notes. When I was like 25,
Mm.
I got my first OUI. When I was 26, a year later, I got another OUI. The first OUI, they were like, okay, you have issues. You've been having issues since you were like 15, 16 years old. So they were like, we're sending you court ordered away to a program. And I was there for a few months again, Women's Addiction Treatment Center in Mass. And at that point in my life, age 25, I thought like it would work for me. I thought I could get sober then. And I think it lasted a couple months.
Mm.
And then I just went right back to the bottle, right back to trying to escape from whatever I was escaping from.
Mm.
And then a year later, I picked up another OUI, and like I don't know, I don't understand like why I never got it, I guess it's just the obsession, and that's when you're in the addiction, right? And
Mm.
you're stuck in that. But after my second OUI, I didn't get another chance. They sent me to Framingham, the women's prison, for 3 months,
Damn.
for 90 days or whatever. Yeah. And then from there, they let me out early because I took the deal where I would do drug court for a year, which is every day you have to go to classes that are all day long and pick up trash on the highway like 3 different times a week, and that lasted for a year. And they drug tested you all the time.
Mm.
And at that point, I was with the wrong crowd. I was like doing massages for a friend, and we were making money like under the table. Like it was a mess, but I was doing that because I was getting drugs and benzos that didn't show up in drug tests, and I was still drinking. I was an idiot.
Mm.
My probation officer was like, what are you doing? So he put me on the breathalyzer that you take home, and you have to blow into that 3 times a day just to make sure you're not drinking. So that kept me sober for 9 months. Um, and then after the breathalyzer, I still drink. That was probably 2017. 2018 is the year that my drinking like picked up super heavily, but I always ended up in fights alone, in hospitals, in jail cells, blackout. But the final moment was 3 years ago, 2008, December 5th. I don't remember what happened till this day, like, but it was really bad. And I woke up in the hospital bed, but I wasn't like in my own body. I was having an out of body experience where I was looking at myself in the hospital bed, and I heard a voice and I was like, it's not your time. And I saw like a light, but then something pushed me back into my body while I'm lying in the hospital bed. And that's when I really wake up for real. And I'm like, whoa, like what just happened?
Wow.
And that was a type of spiritual awakening that I experienced, that I was like, okay, like after all these years of doing the same shit, being stuck in the same cycle of drinking and drugging and trying to escape whatever the hell I was trying to escape from, I was like, I need to stop. Like, I will die for real someday, but something just told me, like, it's not my time yet. Why? I don't know. But that that was enough for me to finally be like, I need help.
Mm.
So I went to detox in where Foxborough, and then from detox I didn't want to go home. I knew if I went home, I wouldn't stop. I didn't trust myself. So I moved to Rhode Island and did the Salvation Army program
Okay.
for 6 months. And that was a faith-based program, really strict. And I say like that program is what saved my life.
Okay.
From there, I went to a sober living for 6 months. And then, here I am living
Wow.
with my fiance and sober for 3 years. But there's so much in my life. Like, I don't know how to explain every little story, every little detail, but I was just a mess for all those years. Alcohol was in my life. Drugs were in my life. Sex was in my life, like all these negatives. Like, I was never ever truly happy. I didn't know what happiness was. Didn't think I could ever get there. Didn't think I would ever be sober. So,
That's what's up.
there's a lot. Yeah.
Nah, listen, I feel you. It's, it's, there's so many layers to that. And like I
Yeah.
said, I'm sure there's a whole lot more to it, but
Yeah.
the most
That was
important,
just an outline.
yeah, but the most important thing is that you made it through it, and
Yeah.
you're on the other side and you're able to tell that
Hmm.
story. That's to
Yeah.
me is where it's at, is that, yeah, you had, however many years it took, for you to go
Hmm.
through it, whatever pain that you experienced, the bumps and the bruises, but you made it through it. And I commend you, because, you know, that's one thing that is truly important, is the environment. You said that once you
Hmm.
got out, you didn't want to go back home, because you know what I'm saying, and that's a good thing to spot out early, because if you know that you're not going to be able to maintain whatever lifestyle that you're trying to go forward with, you're going to set
Yeah.
yourself up. I'll share with you too that,
Hmm.
like, I
Hmm.
had at least, let me see, I did a rehab in Minneapolis, I did a rehab in Alexandria, Virginia, I did a homeless shelter in Phoenix, and I also did another rehab in Minnesota. So I know those first
Yeah.
three, I had that notion, like, okay, I'm gonna do my 30 days, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna go drink
Yeah.
the day I get out.
Hmm.
So, because like you said, the environment, the
Yeah.
people, the people you were around. But at least the last time for me, I went back up to where I got my bachelor's degree from. Nobody was
Hmm.
there. All the guys that was at that college in '01 that I was, going to
Yeah.
school. I'm sorry, I left in '03. They're all gone. They're all, with family. So here I am in 2017, back in
Hmm.
this city, as an old guy at 36, 37, trying to start his life over. And I think that if I would have, been in an environment where I was back, hanging out with certain people, I probably
Yeah.
would not have been gotten sober. So like I said, I
Yeah.
commend you. I know that in the in the moment when you're going through those things, it seems like it's a never ending story, but to be able to go through it and then to see yourself out of it is like, that's a inspiring story within itself, because no matter what it,
Mhm.
whatever you may have saw, regardless of whatever drug you took, whatever the consumption of alcohol is, you were
Yeah.
able to get out of it, and you're able to tell the
Mhm.
story, and and be, what I'm saying, be an impact to somebody else's life, what I'm saying, in the
Yeah, I
process.
hope so. Yeah.
I mean, most
Mhm.
definitely, because the most important thing is that, you know you're not the only person in the world that was, ever given up for adoption. You're not the first
Yeah,
person to
that's true.
start drinking at an early age. I just told you I did the
Yeah.
same thing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different
Mhm.
things in the same way. Partying in the woods, I did that. I had, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's,
Yeah.
people
Mhm.
can relate to those stories. And like I said, this I was partying in the woods
Mhm.
back in like 95. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and trust me, it's one
Mhm.
of the worst experiences to this day. So I mean, and that's what it is that, being honest, being able to share, and being comfortable and confident with what you're sharing too. And
Yeah.
like I said, I know that it's not easy being able to share with just a complete stranger, but within the
Yeah.
process, it does get better. You know.
Yeah, it
Now,
helps.
let me ask you. Now,
Mhm.
you so you did answer the question in terms of you've done treatment and everything,
Yes.
but
Mhm.
now this okay. So let me make sure that I'm correct. So you did like a sober living before you got to where you're currently at now. Is that correct? Or did I miss one part?
Yes.
Okay.
Nope. I did Salvation Army and then sober living. Yeah.
Okay. So now that you're on your own, and you mentioned that you have
Mhm.
a fiance, how is life
Mhm.
today? How is life, or how
Mhm.
how has life been now? You made another transition. You're in another environment. Obviously, it's a safe environment because you're still sober. So
Yeah.
how is life for you today?
Life is amazing today. I'm happy, I'm healthy. I actually met my fiance in Salvation Army, and it was a strict program. We weren't supposed to, but whatever. But we're both sober. I think that is something that really helps. We had a motto like put God first, ourselves first, and then each other first, and that seemed to work, and that is what helps our relationship. But we're in it together, sober, and we're honest and truthful, and we get to experience life sober and help each other and help others out. And like, I think the first moment I realized my life was so different sober was in Salvation Army. We're outside smoking cigarettes and it was snowing, and like I was catching the snowflakes in my hand and I could see like the actual shape of the snowflakes, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm sober I'm seeing that, but like everything just became brighter in my life, and everything's happier and more peaceful and calm. Like all these feelings like I didn't feel before when I was stuck in active addiction. Like I went from a dark into a light,
Mm.
and it's just amazing.
And
Sobriety, yeah.
I like that you mentioned that, because that it is it
Mhm.
and I'm living proof too that, like, you do see things a little bit different. The
Yeah.
sun, and I promise you,
Yeah.
like, I'm glad you said that, because I literally
Mhm.
went out yesterday. Like I'm literally like about a block from the beach here in Panama City, and I don't know why, but like I
Nice.
woke up like super energized, and I was like, I want to see the
Mhm.
sunset. I was like, I don't care what else I do today, but I just want to see the sunset. So I go outside and go over to the beach. Now, mind
Mhm.
you, I didn't realize that like there's like some buildings. I don't know if it's necessarily like downtown Panama City, but it's like near the pier area.
Mhm.
So they got all these buildings, and I don't know if you
Nice.
saw it, but I
Yeah.
took the picture. But like the sun,
Mhm.
that I'm looking at the time, like, okay, we're waiting for the sun, but of course the sun
Yeah.
was blocking it. but I still was able to capture a video and capture a picture of it. And it was just like whatever energy that I got from that sunset
Mhm.
yesterday, it drove the rest of my day. And I said, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing is going to change my mood.
Mhm.
And it didn't. I didn't allow it. And I don't think that I would have been obviously been when waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I would have been
Mm-mm.
hungover. So to be able to
Yeah.
see a sunset, so just to be able to appreciate different things,
Yeah.
and that's to me is what's key in sobriety is that recognizing maybe something that you didn't see before, but now it's like okay, like you said, you saw a snowflake. I used to see all kind of
Yeah.
snow in Minnesota, but I've never seen that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? A whole cutout
Yeah.
of a snowflake. So I think
Yeah.
that's really
It's
really
so
dope.
pretty.
Mhm.
We used to call them God shots or
Okay.
whatever, like every little moment that like synchronized like that,
Mm.
amazing.
And so now, like I said, now you're sober. This is the
Yep.
harsh reality. You're
Yeah.
life still goes on. So
Mhm.
how you I guess you can say, and forgive me if I'm labeling you wrong. You when you were drinking, a lot of times you had that party mentality. I don't really care. I'm just gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Now you care. So
Mhm.
what happens, if you facing, challenges and okay, I can't go to this bottle or I can't go to a pill or I can't go to a drug or anything else. So
Mhm.
how are you in those situations today?
I want to say that I'm more manageable with everything cuz um I mean, again, the support I have from my fiance is very helpful, but I'm in such a place where I've built all these boundaries, or what's the word? Um, Habits, routines, whatever they may be. I built up all that foundation, right? Strong enough where I can say, okay, like today's a bad day, like I can do like yoga or meditate or whatever it may be, and I don't have to drink.
Mm,
But also like something happened when I was in Salvation Army where I prayed for God, my higher power, whatever, to take my anxieties away, to take the negative and the worries away, and that happened. Like from I haven't really had cravings. Like I mean I have, don't get me wrong. It's not perfect. Um I'm pregnant also, so there have been moments recently where my depression came back.
mm,
And see, I had to go back on my medication
mm,
for depression, and that's something I had to do because I found myself in depression state again, and that like was worrisome because when you're in that state, the darkness takes over. It's so easy to fall back into that. So you know I the first time that happened really bad, I actually put myself into a program where they helped me um, for like a week, and then I got out, and I'm like, you know what, I need help. I need to go back on medication. I need to call somebody, set up therapy again. And so when I'm sober, this is the stuff that I know what to do, right? Before, when I was in active addiction, I just stayed in that. I never, I mean, I did have therapy and therapists and medications back then, but none of that worked because I didn't care, because I was still drinking,
mm.
because I wasn't ready.
And
Um,
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because like I said, when I was in the army, they
yeah,
had prescribed me Antabuse. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the
yeah,
anti-drinking
yep.
whatever pill. Supposedly supposed to
hmm
make you sick.
It
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 didn't.
didn't.
it
It
didn't.
didn't. Yeah,
It did.
I took that too, and I drank.
Yeah, and see
Yeah.
that and like I said, I commend you again because of the fact that
hmm
you know it's one thing. Like I said, I mean I had health issues when I was in the army. I was on not as much medication as I am today, but the difference is I take my health serious, and for you
Yeah.
to recognize
hmm
that, that is
Yeah.
that
It's
is
huge.
yeah, it is definitely key because you especially you're caring, so you know what I'm saying, you now you have to take
hmm
into consideration the child as well.
hmm
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, and that too is a challenge. But I strongly, just as a, added, keep going, because
Yeah.
if you know you can spot it out and you don't have those endorphins where it's like, okay, I don't know if endorphins for women, but I don't know. But if you have that
Yeah, I think
something,
so. Yeah, yeah,
something in
yeah.
your mind where it's
Mhm.
telling you like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm having this issue, I need to go drink.
Mhm.
But now you're
Yeah.
like, nah, okay, my body is
Mhm.
not acting right, it's not agreeing with me. Okay, I know that I might need to get on said
Mhm.
medication or whatever it is. As long as you know whatever it is you're taking is going to work for you, that's what's key.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Keeping the
Mhm.
sobriety there. So I definitely
Yeah.
commend you, because I trust me. My fiance, like I think it was like last
Mhm.
year. She's like, "When's the last time you've seen your therapist?" And I said, "It's been over a year." She's like, "I think you might
Mhm.
want to,
Yeah.
start going back." And I haven't looked back ever
Yeah.
since. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
definitely, one, key thing too I wanted to, bring to your attention is it is key to
Mhm.
have a support system. Someone that
Yeah.
is by your side. My lady she's a
Mhm.
licensed therapist, but she also
Oh,
doesn't
nice.
drink. So she, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
That's
it's
good.
like,
Yeah.
and I met her and I told her, I was like, okay, look, I don't drink. And she's like, to be honest with you, I don't drink either. And I was like, I can't let you go.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because I was
Yeah.
running into those problems early in sobriety and dating, like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'll just make the exception because I'm newly divorced and I'm trying to just do what men do and make that
Mhm.
exception. But then once I kind of was like, okay, now I'm starting to see with a more clear lens, then I'm able to make that
Mhm.
decision. Like look, I'm sorry, I have my standards like women have theirs. If you can't meet mine, then I can't deal with you. So I definitely
Yeah.
salute you on that. Now, let's see. So what are some activities that that maybe you've picked up, you know that maybe you did while you were in the drinking, but now you actually appreciate, or if it's something new, like what are some things that you picked up doing now sober?
Um, well, before probably in high school, I started yoga because it was a way for me to also escape, but I didn't really like make it like a part of my routine. So when COVID hit, I decided to do yoga teacher training online. So I recently just got my 500-hour certificate as a yoga teacher. So that's
Congratulations.
something that I did sober, which is awesome. And I don't know, I just every day is just amazing. Like I am able to have my two dogs, you know? I mean, I had a dog who was my ride or die during like my all my years of drinking, but she passed away um during COVID, but then we were able to have two more dogs, you know? Um so we do stuff outside with them. We get to enjoy outside. We get to enjoy life every day and not have to be stuck in a misery. He does all the cooking.
Right.
I don't do all that. What else? I mean, right now I'm focusing on being a sober mom, and that's something I never thought I would be able to do. So, right from there, that's gonna change my life, but I'm so glad I get to do that sober.
Okay.
And now everything else has to change again, but I'm ready for it.
That's good. That's definitely good.
Yeah.
Now, are you
And
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say in meditation, and there's just so much that I put into my life now that I didn't before. Like I changed unhealthy habits to healthy habits.
That's real good. I
Hmm.
actually
Yeah.
experienced a little bit of yoga in 2014 when I was in one of my rehab stints when I was in Virginia, and it was actually pretty neat, because I how you
Yeah.
see it and it's like you actually
Yeah.
do it. Or I might have been like one of those guys like I'm not gonna ever do yoga, and then here I am in these poses and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty neat. So are you active in AA? Was that an option? I know some people
Yeah.
have tried it, some people don't like it. I don't judge when it comes to that, because I'm not a person, and I've been open I have a sponsor, and I've had the same sponsor since 2008. So we do the calculation is longer than I've been sober. So this is just how long I've been trying to get sober. But I'm not a person that goes on a regular. I don't do 1,001
Yeah.
Zooms and stuff like that. But I don't take away from it, because whatever works for you to keep you sober, that's the goal. So it to me, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I'm just curious, do you
Hmm.
poke your head in and out? Do you
Yeah.
go, or
Yeah.
okay,
So at first, we had to.
okay.
I remember my first experience with AA was always ordered, so I never really like focused on it or cared about it. And then I was in a program, one of the programs I was in. I remember they would take us to them, and I would always cry at those meetings. Every meeting was so emotional for me. Uh, but then recently, when I was in Salvation Army, we had to go to meetings, so we did that, and I found that I liked NA better than AA. Just in my area, I just felt more connected there, and then that's where I met a sponsor that I had for about a year. But in sober living, I got a job, and then we did have to go to certain meetings like a couple times a week, but I was just so busy, but I kept up with everything I had to do for my recovery. It's just,
Mhm.
I didn't, put my meetings first. I know a lot of other people do that.
Right.
And then when I left the sober living, I moved in with he was my boyfriend at the time, but um, we would go to meetings once in a while.
Okay.
It's not like an everyday, like, religious thing that we do, but we know that they're always there. We know that they'll help us when we need to go to a meeting and listen to like other people's like stories or words. um but then that's also why I started my podcast, was just so I could like have other people come on and share their stories, and I could just share my stories, my advice, because sometimes it's not so easy to get up and go to the meetings. Like, I know at first for me it was so hard to accept that because of my anxieties, because I didn't want to be around other people. And sometimes it's just easier to do it like even on your computer, or even just listening to somebody talk, it's different.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it like I don't know. I guess I'm real when it comes to AA. Like I was
Yeah.
only like, but where I was going in Minnesota, the it was in the same city where my mom lives, and so
Okay.
at the I would go. My mom was of course like my biggest supporter, so she was always like, just go to AA, go. But I would leave and
Yeah.
go drink. This is the early
Mm-hmm.
stages. But as I got into sobriety, the first, couple months or whatever, I poke my head in if I come into town, because like I said, I lived about an hour and 15 minutes away from my mom. So I kind of was just up there alone. And it was just like, okay, this is the true test. I don't know how this is gonna work, but I'm gonna make it work. So and I felt like I wanted to do it a little bit different. Yes, I would still go to AA, but it was like I want to just try this my way. So I'll be able to tell
Yeah.
people, like, okay, you don't necessarily have to. And so that's why I do ask the
Mm-hmm.
question, because like I said, there are some people that it is court ordered. I mean, like I said, people got to, sign, get the card signed and stuff like that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But then there's also people that want to go. There are some people that do the 90 and 90 and all that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But like I said,
Yeah, there's a lot of people who like say like AA save their lives, or they're there every single day or twice a day, whatever it is. But I never really like did that for my recovery. I kind of, like you said, like kind of did it on my own, but
Mhm.
knowing AA and NA are there if I
Yeah,
need them.
if
You know
you
what I
need it.
mean?
That's the key,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
And now you mentioned your podcast. We're gonna touch on that in just a second.
Hmm.
Um,
Of course.
I noticed one post, and you discussed this, but I wanted to just touch on it briefly.
Hmm.
Um, this is a quote from your page. Getting sober meant I had to learn to love myself instead of wanting to escape myself.
Hmm.
Now, that it truly stood out to me, because I know that early in my sobriety, it was or those last maybe 3 to 6 months before getting sober, I hated
Mhm.
everything about myself. I couldn't get anything
Yeah.
right. I, you know, was just there. I was just a person
Mhm.
in Phoenix, Arizona that was just kind of floating. And
Mhm.
once I went to treatment and literally went through my phone on a Saturday morning and deleted all the pictures that I had of my ex-wife, all incriminating videos. So this is on video. I have to say
Yeah.
this. I got rid of everything and was
Yeah.
like, okay, now it's about me. A lot of times
Mhm.
we in the drinking, it was about us, but it wasn't truly about us because we were punishing
Yeah.
not only ourselves, but we were punishing those around us in the
Mhm.
process. So, and I definitely stress that, in my sobriety, how much I just love this new life that I have. And that one, that quote really stuck out. And so my
Mhm.
my question is that, why do you think we have a tendency, when we were in drinking, to escape? Like we didn't want to be where we were, even though we might have been at
Mhm.
that party at the campsite, but we didn't necessarily really want to be there. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
let me get the alcohol in me and then just have whatever experience and bring out
Yeah.
somebody totally different. So
Mm.
um yeah, so I don't know if the question was clear, but just
Yeah.
how.
So
Right.
why did we want to escape?
Mhm.
So, I mean, for me, I think I was escaping from some sort of trauma that I didn't even know I had until I got sober. Escaping from reality I didn't want to feel. And then towards the end, I did hate myself too. I didn't care and I wanted to die. But I had that emotion ever since I was a teenager.
Mm.
And I never really truly worked on that. So towards the end, it was kind of like, all right, like I don't care, I'm gonna give up. And I lost my faith somewhere along the way too. And I was just, I don't know. It's probably our traumas that we escape from. I mean, I don't know what else or why else we do this. And then once we're in the addiction, it's an obsession and it's a disease and then it changes us.
Mm.
It's a complicated it's complicated.
Okay.
But I do believe, I don't know. What am I trying to say? I mean, I do believe alcohol is powerful enough to like change who we really are into someone we're not. And some people might like that escape too, like I don't know.
Okay. And and so you have a
I think like
podcast.
loving
Oh, go on, go ahead.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Go
No,
ahead.
I
No,
was gonna
go
say I think like loving myself though was something I had to relearn,
ahead. Mhm.
and because I hated myself so deeply, so loving myself was hard because I was always just like the number one judgmental person to myself more than anybody else. It was always me, harsh on myself. Um, but learning to love myself, like it helped me. It changed me because then I could love other people
Mm.
and accept that into my life. And then I got my faith back, which is like a huge thing that helped me.
Most definitely. And
Yeah.
so you have a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So first let us know what's the name of the podcast so that they can follow that. So what's the name of your podcast?
Okay. My podcast is Christa Living Sober,
Okay.
and you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. I did start a YouTube page, so it will be up on there.
Okay.
But yeah.
And so and what exact, what is your podcast entail? What is your what is your the
So
mission for your podcast?
yeah. So I actually started a blog that I never really finished called Christa Living Sober. It was going to be a blog where I just write a bunch of stuff from my journals about my addiction, about recovery, about my stories, about like all the stuff I've been through, just to see like if it would help anyone else. But then um, during the pandemic, I turned it into a podcast. I thought it would just be easier to reach other people like us, like addicts or people in active addiction or in recovery, what no matter the stage, like if they're sober curious, whatever it may be. I just thought by putting it out there, I could reach, other people, help them, because I know how hard it was when I was going through it. I didn't really have that help, that support.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's just a recovery podcast. I touch upon faith, spirituality, mental health, anything to do with coming into the light from a dark place. So
That's real cool, real
mhm.
cool. And
Yeah.
lastly, before we conclude, I forgot one question, and
That's okay.
that question was the how has the Just for Today, you reading that, how has that helped you through your journey of sobriety?
um it helps me because just for that moment I can read the just for today, and it kind of uh brings you back to a daily meditation where you can focus on recovery, focus on what you learn in AA and NA, but mainly just in recovery. And if you can get anything from what is, in that day's reading,
Mhm.
then that will help you throughout your day,
Okay.
and you can take it one day at a time.
Mhm. That's what's up.
Just recovery advice, but it doesn't have to be just for recovery. It can be about anything in your life
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you can relate it to. Yeah.
that's what's up.
So,
And
yeah.
lastly, you have a wonderful story that I'm not just saying that there are a lot of people that need to view it simply because the adoption, the early age drinking, the underage running in, having run-ins with the police, the
Mhm.
experience of trying to quit and not being successful, and then actually getting to that point of you know getting the help, going through halfway houses, so you got the full experience that some
Yeah.
don't, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so what advice would you give someone that is sober curious, someone who may be able to truly relate to your story, or
Mhm.
someone that's early
Mhm.
in sobriety? Like what would be some advice that you would give them that would help them, kind of guide them to be on this path of sobriety?
Um, I would say that if you're really thinking about quitting, like if you really think that you have a problem, you might, but you necessarily might not. But I would say just reach out and look for that help, whether that's in therapy, whether that's if you think you need to go to detox, whether you need to move or change your friends, people, places, and things. Then do it. If you by not doing it, you get stuck in that cycle.
Mm,
You do have to be willing, and you have to admit that you have a problem, because that's the number one thing. Like if you don't admit that you have a problem when you think you might, or even when you do, then you're never going to get there.
mm,
And another thing is you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because if you stay in your comfort zone, then you're never going to get out of that. You're never going to learn how to change.
mm,
And change is something that we all need to experience to get better from things that hold us down, from things that hold us in the dark. So um and then also just keep it in the day. Like don't try to like quit too many things or do too many things and become overwhelmed, because when you become overwhelmed, that leaves room for like worry and anxiety and all these things that come down on you again, and that doesn't help. So just, and like you said in the beginning, I think keep it simple.
Mm,
I used to be that person who would not keep things simple, and I was would always make something more than it was.
mm,
But yeah,
most definitely.
and reach out. There's
Yeah,
always somebody there. Like, I used to think nobody was there, but there's always somebody,
yeah, definitely.
including myself.
Excuse me, most definitely, because I don't really sleep much, so I'm checking my inbox just in case if they, hey, if somebody want to reach
Yeah.
out. I've talked to people 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the
Hmm.
morning just to get them through, whatever they may be going through. Now,
Yeah.
again, how can they follow you? And so make sure I plug that and
Hmm.
everything so they can check out your podcast as well as follow you on
Yeah.
social media.
I can actually send you my link tree if that helps, or some links if you want to link them. But just type in Christa Living Sober, and it should come up in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and then my YouTube should also be under Christa Living Sober. And I put up some videos there and some podcast episodes in the Just for Today's.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And like I said,
I
Kristen,
can send you some stuff. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Because what I'm gonna do is
Hmm.
I'll definitely tag everything. I'll copy and paste and put it on
Hmm.
on YouTube and stuff.
Okay.
And then, like I said, once I've created the accounts on all those sites you mentioned. I just haven't. I'm a one man
Yeah, no
team, so
worries.
I'm trying to. I'm still trying to put this all
Hmm.
together. But
Hmm.
I want to leave you with with this
Yeah.
is continue to share your story. I think
Hmm.
it's truly important because people like myself respect it. Because like I said, that it's almost like sitting in that AA room or NA room and you're hearing the story. I just heard your story and I can relate to it. I can put myself
Hmm.
in some of those situations because I've experienced it myself. And that's
Yeah.
the setup for us, is that you never know who is going to, your story will actually impact. So I definitely, stress to
Hmm.
continue to press the message of sobriety, no addiction, because that's what we need in this community. And like I said, I am truly
Yeah.
thankful for you coming
Hmm.
on, thankful that you're comfortable enough to share those personal experiences, because it truly is heartfelt that you trusted me to come on and do this, especially with minimal conversation. So I definitely want to say
Yeah.
thank you for that. And like I said, my show is I want my guests to feel as comfortable as possible, to be able to
Hmm.
share and get positive response and encouragement to keep you going in your drive of sobriety. And so, like I said, I'm rooting for you. I want to see you successful and
Hmm.
see you at the
Thank
top. And
you.
we could talk about this in a couple of years. I remember when
Yeah.
that's what it's all about, is that we're all working together. And then, like I said, I learned some
Hmm.
things from you that I totally forgot about, in terms of like emotions and stuff like that. So that's what this
Hmm.
is. It's just more or less, the more we talk, the more comfortable we get within
Yeah.
within sobriety, but not too comfortable to where we go back and drink. But
Oh, no, no.
just to understand. But yeah, so like I
Yeah.
said,
Well,
this
thank you so much.
no problem. But like I said,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, this concludes 12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast. I'm gonna keep them going, keep trying to get good people on here to share their stories and
Mhm.
just be the support system that we truly need out here, that a lot of people say that we don't have. So, like I said, until next time, and thanks for tuning in. This is 12 Faces of Sober.